So I spent a few days lurking around the internet looking for reviews of the Daily Wire's new movie, Lady Ballers.
In a world where women's sports is being transformed, the Daily Wire calls foul with the most triggering comedy of the year, Lady Ballers.
And I could not for the life of me find one that was even remotely neutral. They were either very progressive people talking about how the movie was awful without actually seeing the movie, or right-wing Daily Wire fans saying it was a great movie, the best movie ever even. The Rotten Tomatoes score does not help much because you have to be a paying member of the Daily Wire to watch the movie. So I decided, f*** it, I'm gonna review it. Also, I've heard from several different little birdies that Jeremy Boring, the creator and main character of this film, is a fan of mine. So, hi Jeremy, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. No, I'm not. So let's just quickly get into like a summary of the movie before I give my personal opinion of it. The movie opens up in 2008 and we see the main character, played by Jeremy Boring, coaching a high school basketball team. His team is down at halftime, but he gives a speech in the locker room and leads them to victory. Fast forward to present day, and Jeremy is now a high school teacher and a divorced dad. He has a good relationship with his daughter and seemingly is friendly with his ex-wife and even her new boyfriend. And in this house we believe type lib, played by Matt Walsh in a wig. In a blink and you miss it scene, Jeremy's character is fired over the phone and looks for new employment. He returns to a store he used to work at, which has been turned into a drag bar. There he sees one of the guys who played on his basketball team all those years ago, Alex, wearing a wig and working at the restaurant. Jeremy convinces Alex to join a running competition for some reason, but Alex forgot to take off his wig from work, and then they think he's a trans woman, so they enter him in the women's sprint instead. Going against women, Alex obviously dominates the competition and wins the prize money. Alex and Jeremy decide to get the old basketball team of has-beens back together in order to qualify for what is basically the Olympics or something. They convince them pretty easily by explaining that they will be winners again if they dress up like women and compete against women. Predictably, they dominate the women's teams and make their way to the championship game. At the championship game, the opposing team shows up and is composed of entirely big black dudes, also pretending to be women. Jeremy has a change of heart and tells the team what they've been doing is wrong and substitutes his team for his daughter and his friends. They lose big time, but Jeremy and his ex-wife and all the team are happy for doing the right thing. The end. The whole movie was kind of sold as like, remember when movies were offensive? Remember humor? And if I'm being completely honest, this movie lacked in both humor and offense. Let's talk about the humor first, then we will talk about the offense.
We'll return after these messages.
Whenever some big controversy happens, it's always hard to get some unbiased coverage of what exactly is happening. That's why for almost 3 years now, I have been using Ground News. Ground News is a website and app that gives readers an easy and transparent way to read the news. For example, when we look at that scandalous story about the Senate staffer incident, we can see that it's been covered by 99 news outlets. If I scroll down, I can see every article about it. Every headline has tags that show me the political bias, reliability, and even the ownership of the outlet. For instance, how the Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos, or how Fox is owned by the Murdoch family. And it's really interesting to see how the narrative differs depending on the source. From the left, Senate staffer alleged by conservative outlets to have had a scandalous time in a hearing room is no longer employed. Alleged. And from the right, Democratic senator fires staffer who filmed gay scandalous escapade in hearing room. I just love how they are the only ones to add gay. One of my favorite features of Ground News has to be the blind spot feature, which shows you news stories that have only been covered by one side of the political aisle. And it is a great and easy way to stay informed. And right now, it's their best deal of the year. 40% off unlimited access by going to ground.news/shoe or clicking the link in the video description. Thank you, Ground News, for sponsoring this video, and thank you, the viewer, for not skipping the ad. I was not quite sure of the tone this movie was going for. When I first saw the trailers, I thought maybe it was gonna be like a spoof or a parody of like early 2000s comedy sports films. Like the trailer had the font and the slapstick and the announcer guy.
From hero to shero.
Rob Schneider is a carrot. Like, I kind of thought it was gonna be a more self-aware, ironic type of movie, a la Zoolander or Tropic Thunder or something. But from the beginning of the movie, it was obvious that was not happening. It just kind of felt like a Adam Sandler movie. Not like 90s Adam Sandler, not like Uncut Gems Adam Sandler, but like Jack and Jill Adam Sandler. I guess I had higher comedic expectations for the Daily Wire for some reason, but every time the movie tried to do like actual movie things and movie humor, it was bad. I went in thinking the political parts of the movie would be the corniest and the worst parts, but they were actually better than when the movie tried to be a movie. A lot of the jokes were extremely predictable and like jokes we've heard millions of times. The comedic timing on a lot of the jokes was awful. Things just lingered for a really long time. The pacing was all over the place in this entire movie. It felt like it actually skipped some scenes because something would happen and I'd be like, wait, like why did that happen? Did I miss something? No, I didn't miss something. That was just thrown in there, and it kind of just felt like they threw them in because they remember like, oh, this is supposed to be a comedy. Also, something like randomly exploded, and I had no idea why. I still have no idea why. But I did laugh. I laughed 3 times. Once was when Matt Walsh's lib character was trying like way too hard to be a good ally, and he was like, I see you. Because I've known people like that. We've all known people like that. The second time was when Jeremy Boring called his ex-wife a TERF, because I don't know, it was just kind of funny to see that word in a movie. It was just kind of like jarring. Third and final time I laughed was when Michael Knowles and Brett Cooper were the newscasters. Increasingly, every time it cuts back to them, they're trying way too hard. They're like overcompensating to look not racist, not bigoted. And Michael Knowles goes, "Get off my land, white man." And I don't know, the comedic timing was well done for once. Maybe I was just deprived and starved for humor at that point. But it did get a laugh out of me. Humor is subjective, so I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of like slapstick. It's like, oh, a man in a wig gets punched in the balls. A lot of the jokes were already outplayed years ago, to the point where I was honestly surprised they didn't throw in that clip of the crying Hillary supporter somewhere. Also, Jeremy Boring is a BDSM sub through the whole thing. He's constantly like being slapped and licked and tied up by women through the entire movie. So that was interesting. Quentin Tarantino moment. Let's talk about the offense part.
I know you're not a woman.
Hey, you know how he identifies.
Like I said, this movie was very oversold as this boundary-pushing, triggering commentary.
With the most triggering comedy of the year.
And you would honestly think that by reading, like, left-wing news outlets, like both sides were selling this movie as this like super edgy, offensive movie, but it really wasn't. Like, yeah, some of the jokes were like, trans people, am I right? But they weren't very clever or funny or new. I'm not one of those people who think we can't make offensive jokes about certain groups of people. Of course not. In fact, I think that's a big part of acceptance. I feel like it's fair game to make fun of everyone. Gay, trans, straight, disabled, man, woman, black, brown, Asian, normal. Nobody should be off the table. But despite the outrage and the hype, this movie was kind of milquetoast. Honestly, the people calling it like super bigoted and transphobic are giving them way too much credit. And maybe I'm just really online, but I've seen trans people make jokes on Twitter about trans people that were more edgy and offensive than this movie. I'm just saying, if you're going to sell yourself like this, I'm not expecting jokes like my boomer mom would make. I'm not expecting jokes that I made in 2015. You know what I mean? Also, a lot of the jokes aren't gonna age very well. There was a Dylan Mulvaney, like, Bud Light joke in there. Like, in 10 years, like, is anyone gonna remember that? I don't know. It is a really big deal to them, so maybe. Honestly, South Park did a way better job at tackling this subject. And one of the things South Park does very well is make fun of both sides, which this movie never did even once. And I think was a huge problem, and I think held it back a lot. I understand that this is basically just a Daily Wire fan film. Like, this was just a movie for the fans. This was just a movie for the people that want to see Ben Shabibo, and they want to see their guys. They want to see their favorite guys. They want to hear the two gender jokes. Say! But I feel like they really could have thrown in some jabs and some jokes about conservatives or the right. I feel like being more self-aware would have made this movie more grounded and possibly funnier. Maybe have like an in-universe Daily Wire, who are making YouTube videos and live streaming about the situation at hand. Like maybe one of the commentators from the in-universe Daily Wire confronts the team, and the team has to pretend to disagree with them, like, I don't know what you're talking about, bigot. Maybe even make the character Ben Shapiro. Like, have Ben Shapiro play an exaggerated version of Ben Shapiro. I don't know, I feel like it was missing something like that, because like all the jabs at liberals were so cartoonishly over the top that it almost felt like I was scrolling through cat turds. Truth Social page. If you're going for this universe where everything is amped up to 100, everyone's just a walking stereotype, I think it would have been a good move to go a little bit South Park, because otherwise you're just kind of being like any of these other Hollywood things that pokes fun of just the right, but like the opposite. And if you want to stand out and attract a more like normie, sort of apolitical, swing voter demographic to your movie, I feel like you gotta be a little smarter and more self-deprecating with your jokes, or else you're just the same thing we've seen 5 million times and we're all tired of. Like the old Dodgeball movie and like those old comedies from the early 2000s, they were not targeted towards a certain demographic, they were just targeted towards people who wanted to laugh. And I feel like this movie could have been done that way, but it was just way too politically charged on one side. Of course it was. Again, it's the Daily Wire. I get it. I'm just adding my opinion, what I would have done. Apparently they only worked on this for 6 months. The production value looks fine, but it really shows in the writing. You can have all the money and make a decent looking film, but money can't buy you talent. They needed to get some actual comedians or comedy writers in on this, which might be hard because nobody probably wants their name attached to the Daily Wire. My advice to the Daily Wire crew is, if you're gonna make political comedy in the year 2023, when like everyone's like sick of this bullshit, they're sick of the culture war, try to poke fun at both sides. Maybe hire Ryan Long to help you on the next one, because he's pretty good at that. And maybe I'm just yearning for something that is that, and maybe it doesn't exist and will never exist. Oh well. Also, this movie didn't feel like it had a real ending. Out of nowhere, his daughter is feeling insecure and says, I want to be a boy because boys are better than girls. And Jeremy Boring goes on this whole like motivational speech how like actually like women are great and they're great at raising families and femininity and blah 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 blah. But it feels so out of place and unearned. It felt like a completely different movie out of nowhere. Like maybe they should have shown the daughter overhearing Jeremy's plans to like make his team dress up like women because men can beat women. And maybe the daughter starts to feel insecure when she overhears that. But that didn't happen. It just kind of came out of nowhere. It just became like female empowerment. Daily Wire gone woke. That's also the thing, like every time this movie felt like it was becoming a movie, it just ran away from it. For example, one of Jeremy's team members sees the opposing team of women like crying and being upset because like they beat them, and he starts to have like second thoughts and a change of heart and he feels bad. And I remember being like, oh my god, it's becoming a movie. Something's happening. And literally like a minute later, that's just gone. It's gone. It's just, it immediately moves on to more overdone jokes about trans people and libs and jokes I've heard from funnier people 7 years ago. And that's the biggest thing. There were no stakes in this movie. Like they could have made it so Jeremy Boring's character was about to be evicted or something. Like they could have shown him living in a really shitty apartment. Maybe he's losing connection with his daughter and his daughter thinks he's a loser who never wins at anything. But there was really nothing driving this motivation for him to win this competition besides winning. I didn't feel bad for the main character. I really was not rooting for him. He was kind of a dirtbag. I didn't find myself like wanting him to win or the team. Like there was nothing likable about these people. Matt Walsh's character was the most likable character in this movie. Matt Walsh. And believe me, my favorite show is Always Sunny. I love when characters are dirtbags. But in Always Sunny, the voice of reason is the audience. The characters are the butt of the joke. The characters here were not the butt of the joke. It just completely dropped the ball in so many different ways. No pun intended. In conclusion, if you are a fan of The Daily Wire, this movie is definitely for you. You'll point and soy face at the cameos from Ben Shapiro and all your favorite guys. You'll agree with all the jokes. You'll be spoon-fed everything you agree with. This movie's just one big circle jerk pandering to you, and I get why that would be enjoyable, so bone apple teeth. But for everyone else, I honestly don't know. I feel like it being behind a Daily Wire subscription really hurts it. Like, you guys should really make it available for everyone to watch so we could be the judge. I watched it with my husband, who is a conservative, and he had a very similar opinion to me. He basically just liked the Michael Knowles cameo parts. I mostly found myself just rewriting this movie in my mind after every scene was over. And I guess it's because I myself miss, like, goofy, stupid, edgy movies. Remember when you could say but this was just kind of nothing. You shouldn't blindly trash it because of political reasons. I think it's possible to think a movie's pretty good even if you don't agree with the politics in it, and you shouldn't blindly defend it because of political reasons. You shouldn't blindly defend it because it owns the libs. I'm gonna eat this pile of shit because the other team hates piles of shit. Also, Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh and all these guys have been doing reaction videos to critics of this movie, but I highly doubt they'll do one of mine. I don't think I was triggered sufficiently enough. That is my review. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? If you didn't see it, what is your favorite offensive movie? If you like this video, please consider donating to my Patreon. It helps the channel a lot. Link down below. And I will see you guys soon with a new video. Bye! Merry Christmas! This is the most offensive channel, the most triggering channel in years. We say Merry Christmas. None of that happy holiday shit here.